go ahead, it's about 5 minutes after. We'll start this meeting, and Chris, just to confirm we're recording there and not here, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right. Well, very good. Thank you all for joining us. We have, just for those of you joining via Zoom, we've got in our room tonight, we've got Mr. Dan Horn. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about renewing our casualty insurance coverage. And we've got our 911 director, Brennan Baird, Captain Baird, and I've got our sheriff here, Michael Moore, as well. So those are the ones, and I've got our trusted IT sidekick back here, Chris Bradbury, too. So if we have any issues or whatever, we'll call the appropriate one of them up front and let them get in front of the computer here. Our first order of business is since we were out last meeting, we have 2 meetings that we need to approve the minutes for. And those are dated June 29th and July 6th. I show all commissioners present during those 2 meetings, so I'll leave it to your discretion if you would like to make a motion to approve both of those as presented. We can do them both at one time.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes as presented for both under one vote.
I have a motion to approve both sets of minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a second. Any questions or discussions on this? Hearing and seeing none, we'll start the vote with Commissioner Allen, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Our next item is the chairman's report. I've only got a couple of items on this. I will tell you that the polls for early voting run through this Friday. If you haven't voted, please do so. Encourage anybody that you meet. I think I voted today at about 3 o'clock, and we still weren't up to 800 people, so that's a pretty low turnout, but we appreciate those that have voted. We also have, I wanted to make this statement. I've talked to some of our commissioners. I apologize. We got people that join. I'll catch them as they come in here. There's been a fair amount of conversation regarding the attempt that we made to engage with a developer on a DFAX facility. And I know I've sent most of the commissioners this, but I just wanted for the record to go ahead and state, as some of you have said on social media and other places, but just to kind of let everybody know that approximately 1 year ago, we began talking about a proposed DFAX project that was initiated by the state. They issued an RFP for a purpose-built facility in Madison County. I believed it was an opportunity for the county, a good opportunity. I also understand the necessary requirement for due diligence. I appreciate the timing issues and the risk abatement, economic impact, all those concerns that we must evaluate. And my greatest frustration sometimes is the inability to control the narrative or not be able to eliminate the risk. The arrangement between the State Property Commission and Madison County was something new, something different from anything, at least I'm aware of, in the county being involved with to date. The SPC had an arrangement with a developer, which was Municipal Development Services, to build a facility that was to be located in Madison County. That much was determined before Madison County got involved in the discussion. The MDS presented its plan to the county with certain agreements and concessions from the county up front. They then proceeded to move forward with the development. And from that moment until now, we have been negotiating and coordinating with MDS regarding contractual arrangements and the language. The hope was that everything could and would be resolved. We came real close. Ultimately, the county and MDS were unable to agree on all contractual provisions. I, through council's advice, notified MDS we would be unable to move forward with the project without resolution on those contract issues. It is my belief and conclusion that this deal is no longer in play. And I wanted to go back to a request that had been made of our board at a meeting to approve contingent upon those parameters being met. Had the board approved the project contingent upon all contractual language being agreed upon by me and our legal counsel, the outcome would still have been the same. So for that, I just wanted to let you know that I've not had any communication with the developer, SPC. I haven't had any communication with anybody on that project, so I do believe that that's a closed issue. At least where the county's concerned. I don't know what plans the developer has. I've not been involved in any of that. The last item I wanted to just make you all aware of is each year we receive from the state of Georgia the fiscal year local maintenance and improvement grant money. This is an annual grant from DOT, and we received the notice this year that the amount allocated for Madison County was $713,509.05. And of course, we'd have to match that 30%, but we did receive at least the word that that was approved, and we'll roll that into our consideration when looking at other projects for this coming year. All right, there are no hearings and actions on any zoning matter that I'm aware of. So we'll go right into, we got statements and remarks for anybody that may be online or may be here this evening. We have 5 items that we'll entertain any kind of citizen's remark on. The first is going out for bid to purchase a new 911 radio system. The second is to consider issuing a request for proposal for a new 911 purpose-built facility. We will consider the 2020/2021 property and casualty insurance policy. We'll discuss the 2020 millage rate. And lastly, discuss a plan for early distribution of 2020 SPLOST funds and the project priorities. So we have those 5 items. If there's anybody here tonight that would like to speak on any of those 5 items, now is the opportunity. We'll open the floor. Anybody at all? All right. I see no, and pardon me, I always have to keep checking the chat as well. I don't want to leave anybody out should they communicate. Okay. Very well. We'll get into the old business, and first item, and let me again explain that for those of you who are Zoom only, you will have the audio. You're going to hear, and we're recording it here in this room, but you won't have a visual on whoever's presenting, but we'll try to identify it and make sure that we give you an opportunity to ask questions or do whatever you see fit on that. So with that, our first item is to consider going out for bid to purchase a new 911 radio system, and with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Captain Brennan Baird if you'd like to address this report.
appreciated. We've had several meetings where some of this information was shared and considered with the commissioners and also a lot of the stakeholders and folks that are involved in the information that we've gathered and the input we've had so far. We wanted to put it on the agenda for two separate items because while they are integrated and they are part of the same project, they are two separate things. One of them being the new radio system. Anybody who's dealt with public safety or needed public safety in the regard where there's been communications involved is well aware that the system we have in place now and have for a number of years is not sufficient. It's not dependable, it doesn't work as it was designed, it doesn't meet the needs that we have now, much less in the future. One of the things that has come up repeatedly is now.
You need your mic there, Chair.
Okay, does it help when it's on to hear him? Okay, no, fair enough. We have another mic and I thought that was gonna feed it through, so I put it back on.
Slide over there. Where's the
We can't
mic?
hear him unless it's coming through your speaker right now. At least that's my case.
Yeah, it's going through the silver mic there.
So if I can stand here, everybody can hear me better?
Is that better for you now? That's perfect, thank you.
Awesome, no worries. So again, we have a VHF analog system that we've had in place for essentially 20 years in the same building that was a repurposed building when it started. We've outgrown both of those things. Anybody who's had any dealings with the public safety radio communication system here in Madison County in recent years is well aware of the problems that exist, and there's really no good solution for upgrading or updating those to a level that's dependable, that provides the level of safety and reduces the liability that we're hoping to accomplish. So in November of 2018, I started working with a number of radio providers to see what options we had in this arena. Many of them I was already familiar with, several of them we already use as contractors for various purposes and various sections of our communication system. Went through with each and every one of them to discover what options they had, what they may propose moving forward, and how we could accommodate the needs that we have with our public safety radio communication system. As many of you know, there are a lot of parts to this system. When you say radios, I'm not just talking about the radios that you would tote around or that would be in a vehicle, in an ambulance or a police car or fire truck. There's microwave links, towers, infrastructure, power sources, dispatching screens, CAD consoles, headsets, integration with all those things. The VHF analog system is becoming antiquated to the point that you can't fix it, you can't find the parts, and it's enormously undependable. Like in the past 2 weeks, we've had issues with a radio frequency drifting all over the South, just keying up radios and shutting down towers. Nobody seems to know where that comes from. If we migrate to a digital platform, we don't have those issues. What we would do is have each of these companies, there are 3, that feasibly can provide the services that we need here in Madison County, based on their geographic location and their proximity to us and what they provide. So I've talked with, met with, and gotten written proposals, estimates, and plans from each of those vendors or companies. And at the end of the day, there is only one company that can provide us with the service we need for a price we can afford to pay. And as each of you have seen the proposals that I've given you, the realization or the real life application of those prices and how it plays out over the next 5 or 6 years, and how we can benefit from that and how financially it pays for itself. That would be the radio side of it. The building side of it, again, we've got a building that's built out of cinder block. We spend thousands of dollars a year on heat and air issues. Without starting over, there's really no fixing that. The electrical infrastructure is not sufficient for what we need. It's certainly not capable of holding what we need in the future. And we can't build a new radio system in the existing building because there's simply nowhere to put it. We can't continue to operate on a 24/7 schedule and provide services while building a system, because there's nowhere to do either of those things. So what I've proposed is just what you guys have seen. It's a proposal that would include a purpose-built building. Everybody in the county would share in that cost. And when I say everybody in the county, I'm talking about the public safety entities, fire, police, sheriff's office, EMS, everybody who would operate off of that system has a share in it. Because of that share, and they're buying into that, we also are able to use the money that was allocated to fund the building and the radio system. So this is not me asking anybody for any money. This is simply asking for you guys to consider these proposals, knowing that at this point there's only one that financially and realistically meets the needs that we have. So I'm asking that you guys would vote to approve proceeding with the purchase of that radio system. So everybody buying into that, it's not new money, it's not a request for more funding, it's a paid for project that was SPLOST allocated. The commissioners set that money aside. The voters passed that. It's funded. It's not like we're asking for a ton of money. There may be some auxiliary funds that are required as we move forward, whether that be computers or desks or something like that. But primarily this right at $1 million project is completely funded. So based on that information, I know it's a little bit rambling, but I've been working on it for 1.5 years, and I know you guys have only seen it for a bit of time. But I'm sure you have questions. I'd love to entertain those questions and give you what answers I can. But ultimately, I'd like for you guys to consider voting on sending the building out to bid tonight, and also on moving forward with the purchase of the radio system, which is, again, only one sole provider that can provide that.
Okay. Would any of the commissioners have any questions? I will point out, and I don't want to, the way that it was presented to them, Brennan, just so you're aware, is the first one was to go out for bid to purchase, which is a little bit different than to go out for purchase.
Right.
I mean, so, and then the second one was to issue an RFP for the building.
Right.
So is that in fact what you're asking for, what is on here?
On the RFP for the building, that is absolutely accurate.
Right.
In light of some information I'm not sure everybody was aware of, with only one company being able to provide what we're asking for, I don't think the bid process for the radio system is actually something that's needed as much as the proposal to purchase that or move forward with the purchase.
And I'm gonna throw this out there because I'm not sure, but I know through our Georgia procurement registry that regardless of what the county's purchasing policy is, we still have a threshold that we have to at least go out and advertise or put that out there for a certain period of time. And I don't, if it's true, I don't know how subjective sole source is here on that, because like you said, you feel that that's, and I'm not trying to say that's not a good idea, I'm just saying there still might be some requirements though that suggest that we actually do have to advertise, or we have to do that. And what I would do though is, before making that that comment or whatever, I would suggest that if the commissioners have any questions, we'll get to those, but then I'd also like for the county attorney to at least just make sure that we're not speeding past something that, whether we believe it to be a technicality or not, I don't want it to come back and stop this once we're somewhere down the road on it.
I agree. And I know Mike and I have talked about it on a couple of occasions, and I know there was some conversations about the Motorola or MCA being on a procurement contract, and they are. He can explain further about how they align up. They are a subsidy of Motorola, Motorola being on the procurement contract that we talked about. There are sections of that are not necessarily the same thing that we're dealing with, because our system would be different than Elbert County's, or in that case Houston, Galveston, or even Jackson County or anybody like that, because some of the geographical concerns that we have, the actual system that would come as a whole, would be different. Like our system would be a 3-site system that would have 2 transmitters. Elbert County has the same company built an exact replica of this, except theirs is a 1 transmitter, 1 receive site. So the system that they get from Motorola, parts-wise, may be a little different. So when they price it, it is literally as a system or a package built specific for that entity. In this case, that entity is us. But the radios and those sort of things are all listed by price on that contract as well.
Brandon, this is Brian.
Yes, sir.
So whenever, I know that the last time we met, you brought those 3 different cost figures in there to the meeting.
Yes.
So were all those based on exactly the same system, the parameters that you just talked about?
No, sir. They're exclusively different. Each vendor has their own system, but the only 2 that provide simulcast ability, the ability to do paging as it exists now, and work geographically with our area is MCA and Motorola. Motorola's corporate system would be a P25 system. We're looking at roughly $5 million to turn the key on that one. We have less than $1 million to spend. That disqualifies them. That's nothing. We can't do that.
Right.
So that leaves us with 1.
Well, I understand that, but as far
Yes.
as if we need to go out and bid, I don't know what the requirements is on how many bidders we gotta have, but
Yes.
basically, we could go back and specify and get them to say, I mean, it may come back the exact same thing that you got.
Right.
Just meet the criteria that we need to meet and the requirements that the state has. And that's the reason I asked the question, where's there commonality in that? And so the 3rd system, it can't do that. So I guess I asked
Right.
Mike, how many bidders do we have to have?
There's no particular number of bidders, but we do have to put it out for bid or for proposal. So what I understand Captain Barrett would be saying is that he has gone out quotes. You cannot go according to your purchasing policy on quotes beyond $100,000. I'm not sure exactly where it breaks down into different areas, but anything over $100,000, according to your policy, should go out for either bids or proposals. Typically, with something of this nature, you put it out for proposal. You put in the specifications. Well, the specifications is the wrong word. We have the parameters. What you're trying to do, such as Captain mentioned, some retrofitting ability with their existing systems. So that'd be one thing you put in there. So you put it out, and it goes on the Georgia Procurement Registry, as the chairman said. And then you open your bids. You may get 1, you may get 10. You can choose 1 or more of those proposals. I'm sorry, not bids. You can choose 1 or more of those proposals and negotiate with that company and try to refine it. And then you do that until you get to what you think is the best price for the best system that fits you, and choose that. And again, we can't just, you can't just go out for quotes and say, well, they told me, based on these quotes, I can only afford 1 of them, and therefore that makes it sole source. That's not what sole source means. Sole source means there's only 1 supplier of what you need at any price.
Right. But we would assume then, I guess, Captain Beard, that if we went out for bid, that the MCA or at least the other, which, what is that, mobile communications?
It's mobile communications, Gumby, which is a Kenwood system, and Motorola Corporate, which would be also a Motorola maintained by MCA, but it would be a P25 system.
Well, we would assume at least MCA and mobile communications would come back and be part of that bid, since they are both on the procurement. Isn't that correct?
Sort of. Motorola actually stepped back and allowed MCA to bid. As a parent company, MCA was not allowed to provide a quote for this system until Motorola was satisfied that they would be unable to provide us with that service for the amount of money we could provide.
Well, I guess that we could, they
So
go.
if I can clarify, I'm sorry, can I clarify that? I'm sorry to cut you off, Commissioner Kirk, but that's actually not exactly right. So, when I was asking about this, and was being told, well, the exception is not sole source, but rather would be we're on already on a cooperative purchase agreement with another governmental entity, which would qualify them. So what I found out is, that it's not actually Mobile Communication America, which is an independent company. It's Motorola Solutions Inc., which is listed with a cooperative purchasing agreement in the Houston-Galveston area. And so two problems with that. One is that, again, MCA is an independent company. However, they are one of, if they not the largest, distributors of Motorola Solutions products. So, perhaps you could shoehorn that in if you really wanted to. However, the other problem is that it took a lot of work to try to get some pricing information and understand what we're looking at here. But what I finally got were some price sheets that showed that Motorola Solutions Inc. gives a 20% discount off manufacturer suggested retail on certain products that are within this $1 million proposal, but that only comes to $296,520 of the approximately $1 million bid, or quote rather. So the other $713,388 are either products or labor that aren't part of the purchasing agreement at all, even if we did choose to overlook that these are two separate but somewhat connected companies.
So,
I guess, just bring it together, we need to bid this regardless, and then who bids it, then we can look at that. And meeting the requirements that Brandon's put together should give us the best, hopefully the best price or whatever.
and I believe if I understand it right, even after the bidding process, you may be back with that same vendor, but you will have satisfied the requirement to at least consider and to ensure that we haven't, limited the participation in the bid or RFP process. So I think how we get there is important, but as long as we all know that, again, as this is presented, the board would be considering to go out for bid. The purchase would be a decision based on that bid when you receive it. So that's the first one. And I think for simplicity's sake, I believe we kind of just covered both of those two, didn't we? So we talked about the RFP for the building as well in that. So if you want to treat them the same, or if you want to break them out differently, though, what we could do is just, and certainly if you want to make a motion to do one or the other, we'll still have an opportunity to answer a question or have Brennan share whatever he might know regarding something that you have a question on. So does the board have a particular pleasure? Do you need more information?
I would like to put them together and, make a motion to go out for bid for the purchase of the new system, and also to issue a request for proposal for the new building as well. Not sure exactly how you would like me to say that.
Just like you did? No, that's fine. If that's what you wanted to do. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
May I ask a point of clarification? I think you actually probably want to go out for proposals on both. I don't think we have, a long list of specs to do on either one of those. So they'll probably both be proposals.
Okay. Well, let me.
You want to
I
amend
guess I
that?
should withdraw that, and I'll make a new motion to go out for proposal for both the 911 radio system and the purpose building.
Second.
Is that better, Mike?
I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to go out for issue an RFP for both the radio system and the facility. And I think that'll still get you at least the information you need to get back for a purchase consideration at that point, so.
Can I just one more question, and I'll quit monopolizing the thing, but if I could, so Brandon, when we go out for a proposal, currently now, does that include all the radios, include the ones for the fire departments and everything in the proposal, regardless of how they're actually paid for, right?
Yes, the proposal will be for the cost in its entirety.
Okay,
Now, where that money comes from ultimately, or gets supplemented, or who buys what, that's something we can sort out as we move forward, in some meetings with all the entities involved.
all right, very good.
So it'll be like a scalable, I assume if you throw out a minimum 200 radios, 400 whatever.
That's correct.
We'll have that information with this bid. with this.
Yes, it's in there now. But
Okay.
yes, that's based on the numbers of radios and, items that each department within the county uses.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on these two items?
Chairman, do you have any idea how long it'll take to, get this bid out there and back? I know this is, something that's definitely needed, as soon as possible. So I was just curious if there was any time, idea on it.
About 6 weeks. It's gotta run for 4 weeks.
So we have to run it for 4 weeks, and by the time you get that information, and I'm trying to think on the other projects, and we'll run that thing through the registry concurrently, so it's not gonna slow that down. But just for this to be advertised, we have to give it its due course. So I would say at least 4, maybe 6 weeks, and you know, and that would give us time to be gathering up any questions you might have. If there's going to be follow-on funding issues and things like that. So. Any other comment or question?
Yeah, how long, I'd like to revisit what the parameters are gonna be in the RFP, and I appreciate the non-bid disclosure here that we don't need it, because we don't have a set of specifications to develop for apples to apples comparison. But we need to put out I don't wanna say a highly specific, but we need to put out a decent list of proposals. And we need clarification on, or at least in my mind, clarification on what are actual hard components such as a radio, what is any like coding, you know, any computer programming that needs to be done to swap over, or is it truly a plug and play system? I've got, you know, several questions, I guess, that may be too difficult to get through tonight, but I guess some of the things too in the ancillary items that need to be included with the typical RFP process. That does allow, and I appreciate that this does allow us to completely negotiate with the proposed preferred vendor with the RFP process. But, you know, we need to make sure we've got the proper incidentals in there, such as insurance, any bonding requirements, whatnot. Those types of things I think would be critical before the RFP is issued, so we don't lend a sense of non-expectations, I guess is the best thing I want to say. So if we could get an RFP drafted up, I'm sure our county attorney will help look at it and make sure that we've got our I's dotted and our T's crossed, and you know, and maybe some other commissioners that may be willing to take a look at it. I'd be happy to, you know, add something into it if I can. But I just want to make sure that we're clear on the document that gets issued. And then the other question I guess I do have is, supposedly the building issue gets delayed for any reason, what is the system that we're trying to get up in place? Is it a fixed system that has to go in a building that we're trying to build, or is it movable? What's the backup plan on this system if the facility, the purpose-built facility is delayed, or if there's an issue there? Because I think that's going to take a longer time frame to get worked out as well.
I can address several of those things. First one being, it is not a mobile system. It is ordered specifically to the specifications that we would need based on our geography and the location of the towers we would be using. Those individual areas would have stationary equipment attached and built in those locations. Right, our current system, we have 9. The new system, we would have 3 sites. There's a lot of detail we can get into about how 3 should replace 9, but that's the difference in the systems that we're looking at. The radios that we're buying right now have a software capability in them that will currently they're programmed to operate on a VHF analog system, but simply by a software programming component that was added to those radios, we can reprogram them to operate off the digital platform. The radios that public safety, law enforcement, fire, EMS are buying right now are the ones that would be compatible with this system. The ones that are outdated, which are the ones in about 90% of our vehicles, are not compatible with this system or any of the other systems that we're looking at. So the big portion of the price of the startup is the purchase of those radios. So none of the radios that we have, with the exception of the ones that have been bought in the last year and a half, would be compatible with any of the systems that we move forward with. Each of the start to end on the radio project itself is about 3 months. Motorola builds the system, ships the system to the dealer. Then they install it there in their warehouse, test it, make sure that everything's working properly. Then they bring it to our facility and install it in those facilities and test it. Their start to finish is about 3 to 4 months. With the Kenwood proposal, we would be looking at having to buy all new everything and adding additional tower sites to the existing ones, as well as new radios in all of the vehicles and facilities as well. So the incidentals or the other parts of that, the infrastructure part of it, currently the system that we use now doesn't allow for simulcasting. Simulcasting means we can talk on more radios than one at a time or more antennas than one at a time. Kenwood does not offer that capability because of the timing issues. They've not been able to get that to a dependable state. Motorola has. So the dispatch consoles and ability to do that would be a new console system as well, and all of that's included in this system and in the pricing that you've seen so far. So all of the incidentals, everything from the brackets to the microwaves at the top of the tower is included in that $1 million price tag.
One other thing, just as we're talking about what these requests for proposals look like, at least on the building, which falls under Public Works Construction Law, another necessary part of that is you have to have each criteria by which you're going to judge proposals and what weight you're going to give to that criteria. Typically, you would do that for your radio proposal as well, although it's not strictly required by state law. So yeah, this needs to be a fairly well-reviewed and crafted proposal for both of those items.
And I guess going back to what Derek had sort of talked about, so Brandon, clarify for us, the building, I think you stated before, we need the building before we started the installation of the equipment, because we can't put it in the current location. Is that what you said?
In the actual building, yes, sir. The tower sites could be up and built regardless of the building, and the building doesn't have to be complete to put the radio system in it. It would just have to be dried in with a floor and the wall so that the wiring could be installed. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a finished building, and we can put it in the building as it exists. It's just going to have some additional costs because that's going to add a tower site to the system itself, because our tower there at the 911 center is a repeater site and not the primary transmit site. So we would not be able to use the 3-tower system. We'd have to add a tower if we chose to stay in the building that we're in.
approximate, estimate on the additional tower if you have to stay where you're at? Because again, I'm thinking this building's gonna take a little longer than.
About 40,000. About 40,000.
Any other comments or questions on this? And again, if I've tried to follow along, and if I heard what I thought if I understood what I thought I heard, this is a twofold venture here. One is the issuance of an RFP, and upon receipt of that would be a determination on a purchase arrangement. And I had as everyone was talking, you mentioned 3 towers, and I'd heard last year, I guess, the thought behind the 3 towers, and I don't know if this is the same conversation, but you know, they were looking at the county, and I believe it was a latitudinal orientation of 3 towers. Is that correct? Across the county.
Basically, and the meeting you're talking about was with corporate Motorola with their P25 system.
Right.
But they were talking about using the existing towers and adding their radio systems on it. This one would not do that.
Okay.
This one we would use 3 of the existing sites, but not all 9, which is
Okay.
one of the things the P25 system was looking at doing.
So you won't use any of the others?
We would use 3, and 6 of them we would not use at all.
Oh, okay.
And
So this is, if I could jump in, Mr. Chairman, this is the kind of detail that I think Commissioner Foster's rightly pointing out. We need to make sure we have right before it goes out. I'm not familiar with these technicalities, but in an RFP, typically what you're saying is, I want a certain functionality required. Give me your best price to provide it. I'm not sure. I mean, if we only have 3 sites available for towers, obviously that would be part of the parameters. If that's not the case, then you would describe your RFP as, here's what we have to offer, be it 3 sites, 10 sites, whatever, provide the best proposal at the best price working within that.
that's where the proposal for the 3 sites came from. Originally, it was a 2-site, but based on mapped coverages for that frequency at those wattages, we changed that to a 3rd site to include Carlton as a transmit site, where the original proposal didn't have one there at all. So we have 9 options. 8 of them, the county or a city that we're currently having contracts with to use those sites, they're free except for the utilities. One of them we pay $600 a month for. None of the proposals, except for one, includes that particular site. So the sites that were chosen because of the coverages that it would provide, not because of the sites that we had. So that was, we wanted to make sure we could provide the best radio coverage talking in and talking out from what we had. We didn't want to build 9 mediocre sites. We wanted to build 3 very capable sites. So we were able to lay that out based on coverage maps, topography and whatnot on where those would best be located.
Yes, sir, and I understand you've done a lot of work on this, and chances are the RFP at the end of the process will turn out, something very similar, if not identical to what you're proposing tonight. All I'm saying is that when you go through that process, again, you want to make it as broad as you reasonably can, so that in case if there is some other entity out there that for some reason we didn't talk to already that has a better proposal, we don't want to overly limit them if they can provide the same functionality at a better price.
Right, and I agree with you, especially on its face. But a lot of the requirements that we also have to meet to maintain certification and quality of service is the location of those service vendors and the geographical location to the sites that they'd have to respond to in the case of an outage. So all of those things were also considered and would be in an RFP. And that being said, there are only 3. There are several other companies in the United States, but none in our geographical area that could reasonably provide that service. And we don't have enough money to convince them to come here and start a service, so.
Well, and so I wasn't really challenging, you know, the number of towers or anything. All I was also trying to get at is just clarifying whether or not we were gonna use existing towers, or
Right.
we were gonna position brand new towers.
No.
I got two more questions and I'll get out of the way here. And one of them has surfaced in some of the comments here, and I think, this is something that I would highly recommend and encourage you, and I wish I were smart enough to do it for you, but to talk to two different people, to two different organizations. These are the two questions. One is you know, I'm satisfied that RFPs have been written for systems. I'd like to find one that's partially done and steal it and use that, or use as much as you can off of something. The other question was, you know, coordinating with potential, a current user of a similar system that we're looking at.
Right.
How did they get it? How did they get there? And if there's anything that can be exploited, I'm all for it. I know we're not gonna get around the requirement, so it's not about telling you what you need to put in it. If I had to come up with it, I'd probably start with somebody a lot smarter than me on that knows the ins and outs of RFPs and how to. It's a different world, I know that. So we have a motion and a second to at least go out to issue an RFP for both the system, the radio system, and then also for a purpose-built facility. Any final questions on either one of those?
I'll go back and interject into the purpose-built building now. I know we've got a sketch, but I guess in my mind, what kind of delivery method do we have? I mean, are we just truly asking for a contractor to come in and just design build? We have any indication of architectural engineering services that need to be done? I mean, geotech on the building location. Is there anything that we can do to help facilitate that, or is the intent just to put an RFP out there and ask for a design build turnkey product?
Alan and I worked together on putting together an explanation for that, and anyone who is interested in giving an RFP would have to attend a meeting with what the sheriff and I would like to call a board, a construction board, because if a vendor or a builder has never built a 911 system, then they're going to be unfamiliar with a lot of the electrical limitations and a lot of the schematics that they're going to have to look at to build that. So anyone who's going to be interested in doing that is going to be required to attend a meeting with a board made up of folks here in the county who have knowledge in each of the areas that we're going to be dealing with. The electrical side, the construction side. We'll put together a board of folks that can sit down and ask any of the questions that we might need answered in relation to that. But that attending of a meeting to specifically address most directly the electrical schematics of the building. The actual skeleton of the building is the easy part. You can build that to the layout and the functionality that you need. The electrical, the plumbing, the grounding, all those things are going to be 90% of the problems in that building.
So you've already pulled it up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Derek. I just still think I may be overanalyzing this, guys, but what I do every day though is we've got to have some sort of specifications. I mean, I appreciate, whether it's a pretty big conference or whatnot, but, until those electrical diagrams and components and narratives are really put in place by somebody that can tell us what needs to happen, you got, in the sketch, you got an area for
actually got some drawings from some folks who, did an initial, proposal for a bigger building that we had looked at, for the 911 center and EMS to be in the same building. Dollar wise, that didn't make sense. But that is a rough drawing of how it needs to be laid out. Part of that RFP would include the specific schematics, the diagramming, and all those things as part of their RFP. So yes, I agree with you 100%. Those proposals need to include all of the schematics and everything else before we make that vote or accept anybody's proposal on anything.
So I'll ask you, what is the ask of the RFP? Is it a turnkey facility? Is it, I'm trying to get my mind.
Yes, ideally it would be a turnkey facility. That way we don't have to act as our own general contractor, and we don't have folks bickering back and forth on specific portions of it. Ideally, it would be someone who has built a 911 center before, or has at least been involved in that, so that we can, when we start that process, it can be done, and then we're walking into an operational facility. It's not something that I'm comfortable standing there overseeing. I know a little bit about everything, but I ain't an expert on anything. So that's way more than I'd like to get into, and I would prefer that we propose that as a turnkey facility. It's easier that way. In the end, it may cost us a few more dollars, but it'll save us an enormous amount of headache.
So that turnkey building, because of, from the design standpoint, we're gonna need to have a design build type contract with, I don't disagree with the references and the things like that need to be done to handle the due diligence of getting a proper person in there. And of course, experience of doing these at our scale, and bringing that component from scratch to fruition. Again, I think those are the types of things that need to be articulated in writing in a narrative format for the RFP process. And there are a couple choices there, as Commissioner Donster knows better than I, because he does it every day. But you could put that out either as a construction manager at risk, where the GC hires the designers, or a design build contract where the designer hires the general contractor. So these are all, these are great questions that Commissioner Donster is raising, and we absolutely need to address these up front and not think about them later after it's too late and we have to start over.
That was your RFP, guys.
So do we have enough information to vote then? There's a motion and a second to go out for request for proposal for the new building and the radio system. We'll entertain that motion at this point.
Chairman, is that different from the motion I made at the beginning of the discussion?
No, disregard, the motion and the second were already made, you're right. If there's no other questions, we'll just proceed to the vote. That was my bad.
It was a long discussion, don't worry.
Yeah.
For clarity, Mr. Chair, these are for two separate proposal requests.
I would believe that to be correct. That's the way it reads here. So, a building separate from the radio facility, two separate RFPs. Not seeing any other need for discussion. We'll start the vote with Commissioner Strickland.
Yes.
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 Okay, there you have it. Thank you, and I encourage you, if you've got any questions or got some talent right there now.
We're gonna be calling Commissioner Derrick, don't worry.
Say, I've got Derek's number. I'll be calling Commissioner Dawson shortly.
Tell Derek my phone died through all that, if you wonder where I
Open to
went.
work.
Yeah.
We thank you, Brandon, for that. It's just one of those things we just need to make sure that we got all our ducks in a row.
I appreciate the time, I appreciate y'all hearing it.
All right,
So they're separate.
Yes.
all right, thank you, Brent.
Appreciate it.
On the new business, consider the 2020-2021 property and casualty insurance policy. We'll see y'all fellas.
Thank y'all.
Take care. And with that, we'll introduce Mr. Dan Horn. Mr. Music, please, for those of you that remember that.
Thank y'all for being with us tonight remotely, and I appreciate the long-term relationship we've had. I came to work in 1981 in the insurance industry, and in 2000, I sort of inherited the account from Mr. Bob Doster, who passed away this last year. Yeah, he handled the account from 81 to 2000, and I've been spearheading it ever since, and we've had a tremendous relationship with the county. It's grown and prospered each year as we've worked together. The municipal insurance market is a limited marketplace. There's not very many companies out there that provide the type of insurance we need for a jail and a sheriff and EMTs and rec departments and just a variety of different insurance exposures that are unique to public entities. We've been, the last almost 10 years or so, we've used a company called One Beacon Insurance Company that we access through a broker called Public Entities of America. And they've offered us, I think, another good year's worth of proposal based on where we see the marketplace this year. And the number was $242,988. We do have an 8.5% rate increase this year, which is higher than most years. But last year we actually had a 5% rate reduction. So when you look at it over a 2-year period of time, it's not that bad, even though this year it's up a little bit. We've also got a 6% exposure increase, which means that even if the rates had stayed flat, you were going to pay 6% more because we've got 15 additional vehicles, which I think included a couple of ambulances and some other vehicles. So we don't charge for the vehicles when you add them. You could actually put the vehicles on come September 1st and you get 11 and a half months worth of free insurance. But when the year rolls around, then we add them into the account and you pay a full year's for them. So that along with some more equipment that we bought during the year, we picked up another building here recently, and the overall budget was up a little bit, and that affects our liability premium. So all that's factored in there. We did go out and solicit some other proposals. We got those, and we looked at them last week with Mike Pruitt, the chairman, and I, and Nancy Quarles from Public Entities came over, and we looked at that, and we analyzed it, and we just feel like it's the best way to protect the assets of the county going forward is to stay with One Beacon for another year. The other people that bid it, actually some of their rate increases were higher than the 8.5% that we had based on year to what they showed us last year. So over a 10-year period of time, I put a sheet in there, and basically if you analyze it out over a 10-year period of time, you're basically looking at just about a 3% increase. That's almost, I think there's 11 years in there. 2010 we were paying about $185,000, and this year's almost 243. But you compound that out, it's about 3% a year for that period of time. So I think we've had real stability and just kind of mirrored the growth of the county over that period of time. We really benefit with this particular insurance company, having been with them for a while, but I think we nip a lot of claims in the bud, so to speak, with Mike Pruitt's ability to work with adjusters that we're familiar with, and things that could start out small and then end up being, very large suits or claims against the county get stopped pretty quick. And I know Rhonda has also developed a good relationship with a couple of the adjusters over there on our vehicles, and we appreciate your help as well as Mike's in getting things done quickly. So that's where we are. I'd be glad to entertain Any questions, we do take very seriously. We have a number of our staff that actually are citizens here in Madison County. And we generally care for this county. We have a lot of business out here, and we highly value this relationship. So I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions about whether it's the coverage, I think he explained in pretty good detail the increase, rationale for that. This is a side note, and this is not to talk about any particular department, but when we talk budget, you will also see some increases tied directly in, excuse me, in fuel consumption, maintenance, and what have you, as a direct result of the addition of those 15 vehicles. So there's a excuse me, a lot that goes into providing, not just the service, but the equipment that goes with it. So, but if you have any questions or whatever, we can entertain a motion to consider a renewal. I guess it's a renewal of the property and casualty insurance policy. And again, this is through One Beacon. So if you have any discussion or questions, we'll entertain those too. So I'll open the floor.
Well, I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the renewal.
I'll second.
I have a second. Any questions or concern, comments?
On the insurance itself, we may have done it, but have we done, and worked with our provider in a recent time frame to kind of do a self-audit, making sure that, as we add vehicles, we're removing any vehicles that need to come off that list, any opportunities that we can make some improvements to help reduce, some liability or premiums there. If we have in the past, that's great, but I think it's something that we need to look at or get an opportunity to look at in the next several years. Due diligence.
We do that annually. I always bring a list of the property and the vehicles and equipment out. There's a gap between when I have to meet here at the first of the month and the policy actually renews on the 18th. We're all the time making changes, like from the time we started collecting some other alternative proposals to today. At the end of last month, we added 2 new vehicles in a building. So I had to kind of estimate pretty close that into the 240, almost 243. So I generally wait until after this meeting before we know we're not going to add any new vehicles, but we may have gotten rid of some. So that's generally I do that right after this meeting. We bring a list out and we check it before we actually roll it in on the 18th of the month.
And that's vehicles to include any equipment, anything at all under any coverage.
Right.
So it is, at least over the last 2 years, I believe it's largely Rhonda, Allen, and Dan for the most part, or I guess it's you directly.
Right.
So they actually, we basically inventory our vehicles is what we do.
Right. We've done this enough the last couple of years. It's pretty darn close.
Right. Any other comments or questions?
I know through experience over the last 20 years, it's hard to beat Chastain Associates.
We've had, from a personal experience, we've had really good response with them. And we have even made provisions in our budget based on some recommendations through, I don't know, they weren't audits. I don't really know the visits when.
We have one of the services we provide is what they call loss control, where we go out and visit the jail every year or two, and we've had, it's just a value-added service. We have videos and training available for the Human Resource Department with hiring, firing, and promotions to make sure that we're complying with all federal and state laws with that. The loss control engineer, or person that One Beacon employs, is actually a former law enforcement official herself. And so when she comes over and looks at the jail and talks, the jail and the police department are major areas of exposure for a county. It's where a lot of lawsuits and liability exist. And I feel good about the fact that we've got a very well-qualified person for that particular set of exposures. And we do avail ourselves to her expertise. And she's done training sessions on that. And so it's just not me that you're buying. You're buying some other people's expertise as well.
All right. No other comments or discussion. The vote to approve the renewal goes to Commissioner Bettis.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
It was easy.
Thank y'all. We appreciate you very much, and we will continue to work hard to build upon this valuable relationship.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Drive safely.
In the best voice and the nicest tone, you're excused. I know you appreciate that. Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 4. This is discuss our 2020 millage rate. And see if I get my paperwork here. There we go. This can be as detailed as you need it to be, or I can provide you with what it will cost, what the county will forego if we roll back a millage rate. I can share with you that based on our current digest and our expected revenues, and with a straw man of a budget, but I believe each one of you received a copy of a line item version of that. And I'm going to make one comment about that, and that's all I want to talk about the budget. And that is, that particular document has a number of columns, and we tried to give it a little bit more, trying to make it a little bit more relevant. And the document, and just real quickly, it looks something like that, just a bunch of pages with all of this. My point is we've coordinated with all the departments, and we have received requests back from them. And I would hope that we can agree here very soon on a date to sit down and have a budget hearing, go through this. I would like to think that it's going to be a little bit more streamlined. As it stands right now, many of you or some of you may be aware the state did not recommend a COLA this year. It would be up to a board if you wanted to offer a COLA or not. But in the far right column of this particular product is what was requested. The blue column has what was approved after everything was said and done last year. So that's pretty much your starting point, is the 2020 approved and current wages. So the reason I mention any of this at all is just to let you know that even with the proposed or requested changes, revenues will exceed expenses. So you're looking at pretty much a worst case product. And the reason that's important is if it were anything but that, we probably would not have discussed millage before we finalize a budget. So I've sat and I've spoken with our chief appraiser and with our finance officer. And what I will tell you is we have two sets of numbers. These you typically see in the newspaper. We have to advertise. We put out a 5-year summary. And what I will tell you though is, based on our current tax digest, the county will increase, a net increase in the revenue received is approximately $750,000. So that is through increased property values, new growth, and that sort of thing. So the net tax increase is about $750,000. That equates to a little over 7% increase in our digest. If the board chose to roll back to that last year's rate with respect to current property owners, there's still going to be new growth in the county. But if the board were to approve a rollback to hold that at last year's rate, the county would still, instead of the $750,000, the county would still realize $426,000 net gain. The net impact of the rollback is just a hair under $300,000, $295,000, and that's if you hold the rate steady. And I think in a nutshell, that's about as easy as I can explain the total impact of a rollback. If that's something that you would want to entertain, again, if you choose not to do that, we will have we have to have our advertisements and our hearings, and which we'll do. It's the board's discretion. I think very much, though, we're at a point in time where our fund balance is appreciable. It's visible now. You can see it. In a conversation today, I was reminded, our target fund balance in this county for a budget the size of ours is about $4.5 million. $4.5 million. And without going into a lot of detail, I can share with you that we're on track, we're on target right now by the end of next year to have that $4.5 million. And that's with rolling back too. So I think this is something that at least those that were with us 4 years ago, I know when we increased, or when the board decided to increase millage, which was the responsible thing. It wasn't popular, I understand that. But it has allowed us and put us in a place now where we can weather the storm, literally. Conversely, it's the intent was to level that off and to start paying it back, if you will, as soon as the county got to where it could. And I think this is a very good measured effort to start that process. So I personally would, if I were voting, I would endorse this only because the county, our fund balance is in great shape. It's a moving target, but it's going to be, somewhere $3.5 million this year. I would say $3 million conservatively. And you're still seeing growth. There are things that aren't figured into this that the county will realize. Part of that is the new growth at Georgia Renewable Power that we're aware of. $60 million increase to the digest. We won't see it, and we can't even talk about it till next year. But I know it's going to happen. I believe that's going to add to those revenues. Every year in October, we receive an insurance premium tax. And that will be close to a $2 million gain as well this year. So there's a number of places that I can feel real good and real confident. We don't know the future, and you never know how it's going to work out. But based on the best information, though, I would recommend, or I would suggest, that we're in pretty good shape to be able to do this and be responsible in doing it. The vote would come at the end of the month, and that vote would be, if the board wanted to roll back, there is, and Mike would have to correct me, but I've looked, and Rhonda's looked, and our finance officer has looked. We have tried to figure out, I see no requirement to have a special hearing of any kind if we're rolling back. There needs to be.
Correct.
Okay, there just needs to be a resolution to approve the millage at our next meeting. And there will also be an agenda item to combine the county, the school board, and the IDA. And that would complete the millage portion. We are still gonna be about the business of fine tuning our budget. And I just don't want it to be rushed, and I want it to accurately reflect what we're doing. So, not looking for a vote or anything, it's just a discussion item, but what I would ask for planning purposes, and you can let me know, but if we voted August 31st, we're going to try, our tax commissioner and our chief appraiser, we're gonna try to do a quick turnaround and get this to Atlanta so that we can collect on time. So.
My screen's gone out, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Mr. Tripp, you think we can get a consensus on this tonight, just a general consensus?
I would love it if the board, if there's anybody that would oppose it or has any reservations or questions on it, I mean, this is a perfect time. And if I don't have the answer, I'll certainly get the answer. But it would help us in having everything prepared as we go through the month of August. Again, I'm not talking budget, I'm just talking very specifically about our millage rate. And if the board had just an idea, if I knew where to take this and have paperwork prepared or whatever, I'd be happy to do that. But if there's anybody that feels one way or the other, it would help me to know that.
I'm all for it, Chairman. We've talked in the past about it, and you know my opinion, so I'm definitely for the rollback. So if you get a consensus tonight, you have my vote for idea on it.
Thank you.
You have mine too, it's what we said we'd do 4 years ago.
Okay. Again, I'm not pushing it, I'm just, we're extended some latitude right now through the State Department of Revenue, and obviously we can wait on a lot of these things and submitting them. What I would tell you though is, as much as everybody hates paying taxes, it would be better to keep that very much on cycle and not, you get delayed into next year and then it'll appear that we're back to back or something like that. I'd really rather, that was the reason for wanting to mention this tonight, and then have the board vote on it next meeting if we could.
Mr. Chairman, I think, it seems favorable to me to have a rollback position, but I think it'd be helpful for, at least for me, maybe the rest of the board, if, you or finance director, somebody could, maybe capture some of the narrative that you spoke about tonight and distribute that, just to make sure my notes the notes that I'm trying to keep at home are accurate. That'd be helpful.
No problem. And I just want you to know that we have gone through and done that very thing, at least with the actual data. And I'll be happy to provide that. And the latest set of financials would bear out where we are on budget and things like that too. So wouldn't feel bad at all if that's, if that's what, I'll get that to you, no problem.
Has anybody calculated what that would be, for, I guess, property value for 100,000 or whatever?
Haven't done that yet, but that if I have a general consensus that that's the way the board wants to go, I'll have that tomorrow. Though I can get that pretty quick. That's and I just got this comparison today, where we would be without a rollback and where we will be with a rollback. So these are the figures that generate that very information you're talking about.
Right. Well, yeah, I definitely would like for us to go in that direction. I'm sort of like Derek. I want to just see some numbers and have the narrative and
Sure.
make sure that there's a good understanding about what we're what we're doing here.
Right, and I encourage y'all, this is a side note here, I encourage y'all, anytime you have a question, please email Kathy, email her and have her look it up for you too. I don't mind doing it, but you'll get it really, really quick, and, you know, it's pretty easy for her. She has all of this available to her, and she can make it, you know, she can make it a lot clearer than I can a lot of times, so. All right, are we good with that? Okay. Our last item, agenda item, is to discuss the plan for early distribution of the SPLOST funds and project priorities. Okay, I know, and I appreciate very much, Rhonda had forwarded a couple of pages that had some ideas on it. And I would like to share with you that at this point, that's all we've got are some ideas and some suggestions, but ultimately this will come down to board members letting me know how to respond to people that are asking questions about early dispersal or disbursement. I'll take a minute here and see if I can hit real basic things just so you'll have this in mind. And kind of let you know where we are. We had 2 cities, first of all. Friday was the last day that we had really extended the cities the opportunity to take advantage of their SPLOST money up front. Hull and Colbert took us up on that. I've talked with several of the other cities. They explained to me no harm, no foul. They for whatever reasons, they wanted to leave it status quo. We've reiterated that if they do that, they will be somewhere around the 8th, 9th month before they see funds come to them from this SPLOST. I took, and this is how I'm a pretty simple-minded guy, but I know you don't have to read this, but I just want to show you how I scribble. And this is 6 years worth of SPLOST collections, and I had to put it in my mind on a bond to know exactly when money comes in, when money's available to pay the bond payment, and then the cities, by statute, the cities will receive theirs first before any county project gets it. So what it really does is it leaves you with about, in a 72-month window, it leaves you with about 20 months roughly of uncommitted SPLOST money. So we have $9 million in a bond, and we have roughly a little over $4 million in the non-SPLOST collection. So the task here is then to figure out who do you want to give the money to first. Who if we wait, we know we can't give, the county cannot provide money from anything but the bond until about the 9th month this year. So, the other thing that is, you have to keep in mind is these are projections, so you don't even know that you're going to get the full collection. I shared this with several people today. It's on on the Department of Revenue's website. SPLOST 2 years ago for the month of July was $190,000. July of last year it was $191,000. At the close of July of this year is $232,000. It's trend information. It's only as valuable as you want to make it. My point is this, though. I believe this. Anything can happen, but even with the down months and everything proportionally, if with new business in the county and everything, I think that you can expect those numbers to be higher than they have been in the past. That makes me feel better about it. We still have the responsibility, though, to figure out how we're gonna do this. So as I said, after the bond payment is made, each year, we'll have to come up with right at $200,000 for the 4 cities. That's the 4 cities' annual SPLOST payment combined. It's $200,000. That will come out of the money that's collected. We have talked about the fire departments and what the plan is and what, the request was from, I know East Sanford, and we've talked with Hull, we've talked with Danielsville, there have been several. I think for a starting point, again, I agree with Rhonda on, if you wanted to know what projects were considered and were talked about with respect to a bond, I think it was, my understanding, the board wanted to be able to pay for this project we heard tonight, the 911 center. And if you took 90% of their projected SPLOST funds, that's $814,000. As Brennan says, there's gonna be some details that have to be discussed about how you fund the balance of their project and where that money comes from. But I'm telling you up front, if the board was comfortable with 90%, that's $814,000 roughly. So, for fire departments, $873,000 represents 60% of that. And whether that's in the first year, second year, third year, again, that is probably, in my mind, the priority is in determining how the board wishes to pay the fire departments out. Whether, I made myself a note here that no matter what the project is, no matter what the request is, period, any and all requests must be approved by the BOC. So no matter what you decide by way of disbursement on this, appreciate and just know that it's still gonna take a board vote to get that done. And you will have better information every day this goes along about what's available and how pressing that particular project or request is. So out of the 9 million, you effectively have 8.4 million of that available to you today. 8.4 million. That's all of the finance cost, and that's Hull and Culvert taken out of it. So it's the 8.4 million that you need to have an idea of what you want to, or how you want to disperse that. And again, to recover any of the finance cost, I think the merit and the justification will be on the future, as Mike had provided, the future value of money versus the present value. And we'll see some inflationary gains by building something now as opposed to waiting. But if you spend all your money, you won't see any interest on the backside of that. So it's a balancing act. We have a couple of projects that we've looked at. You're aware of some projects that may fall under the facility acquisition and improvement line item. Again, I would say it's the board's discretion at a meeting to make the decision to make those purchases. I don't know that you need to plan or you need to set it aside or whatever, but I'm just trying to give you a framework. There is more art to this than there is science. So what this is tonight was just for discussion, but each one of you should have received from Rhonda kind of the some items, and I know she and I have talked about this, and I use these very numbers on this page to flow out when the money comes to the county and when excess money collected would be available. You have a couple of departments that when this was, when the bond notion was floated, I don't know that I thought of them. Certainly didn't mean to overlook them, but historically the IDA has received monthly dollars. Well, they won't receive any until the ninth month. They are a project in this county. And it may be where they need some of that money to operate throughout the year. And I've coordinated with them. My initial conversation, I was told that they did not need any money for the first year. They did not need any money up front the first year. I don't know if they've had a chance to sit down and talk about that, though. When I asked them, they hadn't, but that was a comment that was made to me. And all I'm telling you, though, is until they know what their requirement is, they're not going to be able to tell you. Fire departments, we have varied needs at different times. And for us to get real specific in this plan, I'm very dependent on the fire department's offering, and I believe they will, offering, you know, a projected flow on projects that they're aware of, the different stations. For example, that may have requirements. They may need that, and they may approach the board for their portion of that. So, you know, I'd like to be open for all of that. It's just I'm going to close my remarks here with just saying, if any of you have specific considerations, things that you want that we might not have thought about to be rolled into this, I can put together a product that has all of these listed, if that's what you want to do, and perhaps a timeline. But until I know what that is, it is quite difficult to do this. I think that it would be very good to have a plan. No matter what I've said about it being fluid or flowing, it would be in our interest to have an idea how you want to flow this. And whether you want to set percentages, you know, on collections or disbursements until, much like the SPLOS that just closed out. I understand the board, none of us were on the board then, but they had established that 60%. And what that did is it got them close enough to the end of the collection period where they could see very clearly how the collections were trending. And it's my belief that all departments will be served pretty well based on that plan from the last SPLOS. They'll all get the amount or the projected amount or as close to it. It'll be evenly dispersed. If there's a shortage, it'll be a shortage to each department proportionally. But it is as dull as the knife was that cut that one, it was actually pretty good. It made it a pretty equitable distribution and a plan. So again, I'll open the floor if any of you have comments or suggestions that we might consider beyond what you've heard from me or from anything Rhonda has provided. I'll try to incorporate it, and you know, we'll see if we can come up with a product to look at the end of the month too.
I really like what the clerk has put out there for us to consider, and I know we can work off of that. But firefighters, I believe, need their 60%. They've been getting that, and most of us have come to consensus that we were okay with that. We don't want to go backwards there, especially with our volunteers that do so much for us. I want to make sure that they have their 60%, especially with the purchases that have been made and things like that to help our citizens in their ISO and those type of things. I believe that these projects, I'm basically just being redundant here. These projects that we need to get done, inflationary value, those type of things, we need to go ahead and get done. I'm all for the 911 projects once we get that flowing. And everything I say, obviously, I understand the cities are not. We've set that money aside. We've taken care of them, and so the news of the IDA really helps me make a decision. If they don't need that money for a little while, that helps free up kind of some views on these other projects. And so I like the starting point where we're at. I just don't want us to go backwards. And I want us to make purchases now to save money later. Those are my two big things. And so, I think if we do those two, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. So, those are my, I would love to hear what the other people, other board members, think. Been sending emails for a while now, and so we'd love to hear what everybody has to say outside of what we've already talked about. And I'll be ready to vote at the end of the month. So.
I agree, especially with the fire departments that the 60% is that, so they got the availability of money. I know that some departments need some now because they got purchases that they want to, make, and so they're gonna come quicker than other departments. But we need to make that available to them. And I know that in talking with some of the leaders in the fire department, that they're discussing some of those things to understand what each department's gonna need, so to try to coordinate with each other. And I'm hopeful that happens, so that everybody can sort of be taken care of. Because we have really 12 entities, 11 entities in there. I guess 12 entities in counting the rescue that money was sort of split between. So we'll need to. Hopefully they'll get that and give us some guidance about how they would like to do that. But 60% seems to be a good starting point. If something comes up, we can still look at some stuff on a case-by-case basis. And as far as the 911, we've got to get that situated. That affects safety, sheriff's department, and the fire departments as well. And that's been part of their discussion. And I think that part of the fire department's issue might have been that what were they going to have to come out of the pocket with as far as their some radio equipment, stuff like that. So hopefully we can get some of that sort of figured out as far as who's paying for what there, and then make some adjustments. That'll make some adjustments to the sort of the pot of money that we have between those two. And then one other question, and I don't know that it may have been on Rhonda's thing. I haven't reviewed it that closely, but weren't there some things at the rec department that we're going to try to do as far as some facility improvements that we needed to do, and I guess to go ahead and get those done so that we, in preparation for, I guess, the splash pad, which is going to be graciously donated by the club there, and I don't know if I missed that, but I think there were some things going on.
No, you're right. You're right. That's why when I spoke of having a plan, it's great. If you didn't set aside a certain amount for the rec department, that still, you still have the latitude though. The Rotary is building a splash pad, but the rec department will need additional funds to finish they built a pavilion with restroom facilities and things like that. They've used their current SPLOST to pay for the plumbing and the sewer and the water lines and everything. So they've exhausted what they have to actually complete the pavilion. They're going to need, they expect that request to come to you for the funds to do that. It may be 10,000, it may be 30,000, I don't know. But again, that's the beauty in having this bond. 6 years ago when they, one of the primary reasons for having the 60% for fire departments was because you were funding everything from your general fund in advance and backfilling with SPLOST. The one difference is you now have a bond account that is sitting there with this money. and I see, yeah, I believe Butch is still on, Butch and Sherry are still on. What I think, and I've talked a little bit with Butch about this, but the tendency might be to go ahead and disperse all of that, but I'd encourage you to let them figure out what their plan is, and as they need it, approach the board. I mean, and because having the money, we want to have the money. Citizens voted for these projects, and there's no doubt that that money's going to go to that project. But it is ultimately the board's responsibility to kind of figure out how it's dispersed and when it's dispersed. And I think ultimately, if you can satisfy their hard requirements as they occur, I believe that's their request. They're looking for it that way. So make no mistake about it, they're going to get their portion. They may not get 100% of their portion out of that bond, though. It may come from the other SPLOST collected. So there's still $4 million that will be collected that way. And as we just said, if there's an agency or whatever that can wait on that, then maybe that's the best way to pay for it. Again, no money in the bank means no interest, but if you hold all of that, you're gonna pay more for it later with an inflated cost. So again, that's why this does exactly comes back to you guys to try to figure out, you know, if this, then this. We'll do it when that happens, or tentatively we'll set this money aside for this project, and as soon as they get an award, a bid or a company, the project for the 911 or whatever, we'll know, you know, that that's going to be built, and we'll trust that we'll realize something on the, you know, the saved cost for building now. We can do that with roads too. That's the other thing that you can actually make money on, is with your LMIG money. I'm not saying spend $3 or $4 million with it first year. What I'm suggesting is you may be able, though, to get a better deal per mile by extending that $1 million that we typically have available to us through LMIG and our match. Maybe, first of all, maybe your match is SPLOST, and then that can be extended out to maybe $1.5 million if it makes more sense to get several more roads covered earlier as opposed to later. I'm sorry, Lee, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kirk kind of reminded me of something I wanted to ask. I know there's some ADA requirements that the RIC department has to have, and I just want to make sure that they put those type of requirements in what they're going to give us. And so I forgot to say something about that. And then one of the clarifications, you said 9 months into is it 9 months after July? So 9 months into this new collection is when they'll start getting that. And that's all I had.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it is. So it'll be March, April, or whatever, before March or April of next year when the money will be made available. And if it's the board's choice, you can make that one disbursement for $199,000 and take care of all 4 cities for the remainder of the year. Or you can split it up into 4 monthly payments or whatever. That's totally your discretion. Any ideas at all, please push them toward me, though. I'll try to, we'll collect, or Rhonda, she's been very good to not just these, many of these are her ideas, and we do talk a lot here about different things, and I know Mike Pruitt has told me that he actually has a lawyer friend. I didn't know about anybody had lawyer friends, but he said he had a lawyer friend that he loves to talk to and bounce stuff off of. I'm telling you, there's money to be made in that. There really is. So please, by all means, send everything you have. Let us know. Whatever, whatever you got, we'll scribble it down. If it sticks to the wall, we'll incorporate it.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate you holding up your scratch pad, because I do the same thing to try to visualize it. One question I've got as I'm trying to develop my own little, get my head around it, the debt origination fee and the service on that, $174, $110. The original budget that we set forth for the county expenditures, for example, 911 being 905, we would anticipate prorating that $474,000 out over the total balance and reducing each one of those project expenditures by that prorated amount. I mean, we've got to make a budget adjustment somewhere to pay for the bond cost. So
In our original discussion, and this was the way it was presented, so we do have the cities, you know, that we chose to waive all claim to their cost. Kathy and I have already talked about it, and she's working on a project across the board, each individual project, and how this money proportionally gets attributed to that. So you're 100% right, it does actually get spread out over those. And whether we just take it right off the top, it's not available either way. Does that make sense? It's not available if the county, so the 474, 110, well, I try not to be an optimist because I don't want to be disappointed. But I think this is going to be a moot point. I really sincerely believe we'll see better collections than what we projected. And I'd love to see that happen. But for accounting purposes, just like any department or project that receives funding from the bond, we account for that out of their total allotted piece of the pie. So a budget amendment, or as you're saying, accounting for that, we can know how this would get spread out over those things. But I'll tell you this, I can't use the cities in that because that was the cities that participated, rather, that was waived, that was wiped clean. All bets were off. If they did not participate in that, they in essence become a city project in my mind. They'll get shorted if we get shorted, you know, that gets spread across the board. So all of these other things will get spread across the board too. And I gotta have a flip chart to have the space to actually put that on, because that's how I do think, because I'm still a longhand guy. I scribble it and then I'll type it up, so. Any other thoughts or ideas? I don't wanna make this longer than it needs to be. I just wanna give everybody a chance though to know what's here, some of the ideas we have, and to suggest things, even if in full discussion the board chooses not to act on it. At least it was a consideration. It was something. That's what brainstorming is. So, is there anything anybody else has on that? If not, we're going to move right on to roads updates.
I talked to Derek, and I've got them situated. We've got some over on Frankfurt that finally got the last pipe in out here.
Right.
And so a lot of folks been asking questions, and I know that's held us up. So I just want folks to understand. Now we've got that last pipe in. You know, hopefully we'll be able to get some other projects and some other things situated and stuff like that. So the weather really did a number on us there for a while. It seems like we've recovered 4 now, and I'll put 4 now in there just so I don't jinx us or anything, but for anyone who believes in that. But yeah, I just want folks to know that you know, our road department's working hard. You know, they've had some issues with COVID and things like that. Just put some stress on them, and they don't have as many employees as we used to have, things like that. So, like I said, I just wanted to basically just give a shout out to, or as Teresa would say, a howl out to all the road department, just let folks know that we are going to start addressing some other stuff once we've got these pipes, these roads back open. So.
And I had mentioned earlier in a meeting about the LMA allotment us receiving the word on the monies. So we need another list of roads to go with that LMIG money now. We'll figure out exactly what the total is. Figure $1 million roughly with our match, and if you want to put a little bit, if the board chooses to put a little bit of a, you know, to complete a project or two, whatever. There, I've got a list that I've started from Alan, from some of the commissioners that bear or merit consideration. But I would tell you, anything that you've got, I've even got Lynn Edwards on there, Teresa. So we're trying to look at all of them, but don't assume. Alan and them do a great job. If they're out, they'll try to take care of pothole or whatever, but they may or may not hear the number of complaints that come to you or to me, or and I say complaints, just some of them are very valid. So I don't wanna make it sound bad. So any that you might have though, please push those to me as well. Don't wait on the meetings. Just send me a one-line email, remind me.
Chairman, will you send us what you have too, just so we can kind of get our head around it? Because
I
I
will.
know East Commerce has always been on the discussion for as long as I've been in office, so.
Yep.
It's a long road, there's longer roads, this might be a time where we can maybe attack something like that. Just throwing my 2 cents in again as usual.
Yep, that's good. Nope, that's good.
I've been dealing with Derek on the dirt part of Racetrack Road. Ditches are full,
Yep,
driveways washing out.
that's right up on 98.
Yep.
That end, yeah. I'll get it. I'll write that down. Some of the roads on the south end of the county, the dirt roads, especially those in low-lying areas, folks, you know, it is a challenge. Water's gotta go somewhere, and it's so difficult when the ground next to the road is higher than it is, so. Wagner's Grove is a frequent flyer there, so I've got that listed as well.
Well, Frank Bird's the same way, Jim.
It is. Frank Bird, interestingly.
Sunray Hatchery is probably worse.
Yeah,
When it
Frank,
comes to that, if we're talking about, low lying areas.
yeah. I've got Sunray Hatchery on the list already too. I will tell you that, Frank Bird was, we had a number of people, several people over there that wanted to abandon the road. Your emergency response to include fire would probably not agree with that. Some of those roads are connecting roads, and while we may not think they service a lot of traffic, if you can get one of them big red trucks down, it is probably important, so. Anything else on roads specifically?
Yeah, I'm still interested in the time frame to patch, where we patch that pipe on Charles Hart. It's just
Yeah.
dragging along.
Got it.
And I got the entrance at Watson Drive. They said when it rains hard, it just flows down. I just don't know if there needs to be ditches dug deeper or whatever, but just to look at that entrance way.
Got it.
Sheriff, this is Alan. Charles Hart, John Beard, Short Sea Grave, and the other one we put, the one the mail carrier fell into, all those are on the list to be patched within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Duncan Swindle?
Duncan Swindle, that's the fourth one, correct.
All right. And I'm sure the commissioners know this, but just as a reminder, it's just like roads, in general, paving, resurfacing. It benefits us tremendously to have a bunch of those patch roads get done at one time. We have them come out and do onesies, twosies is a little cost prohibitive, so, and I believe it was all about asphalt that did it last year. Is that correct, Alan, or last time?
That is correct. Who's got it again this year?
Okay. So, anything else on roads? Urgent matters? This is not an urgent matter, but I wanted to bring it before the board because I don't know that, unless I'm gonna posit it this way, if there's, any objection to it, then we'll certainly, look into it and discuss it. But I've talked with, a number of people, and, to include Alan at the, his guys down there at the road department, but the use of county fuel in our volunteer fire service. We allow, currently have an arrangement with rescue. This is not an added cost to the county. This is a benefit, and I'd have to, I don't wanna do anything illegal. I just wanna make sure, and if there is a reason not to do it, that we'll talk about it. But in the absence of a reason, would the commissioners be averse to allowing the fire service vehicles to refuel? They'll be on a monthly payment, just like, we try to pay that, regularly, but, Alan says that, the volume is not an issue necessarily. We just are trying to make it, not all departments will make use of it. They're not gonna travel from one end of the county and come over here and get their gas. But for those that would find it convenient, would the board necessarily be opposed to the county setting up a plan? It would be a budgeted item, and a payment and everything would be issued for the fuel. It's just a convenience thing for them, and it's a service to the county.
If we can buy it better, I think it makes sense.
It's definitely cheaper through the county.
Is it Boswell? Who has that contract?
Stevens.
Stevens.
Yeah, I think putting the proposal together would be good, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right.
Hey, on that, John, I've got no reservations doing it. I think it could just be interesting for the citizenry to, what kind of savings each department may not see over time, because a lot of that money comes in as volunteer and donations, so.
Sure.
It could be helpful, as long as Mike's good with some sort of intergovernmental agreement type thing.
I don't think it can be intergovernmental, can it, Mike?
Well,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, though. It'd be part of, I don't even know if it could be a contractual thing, but I'd have to defer to him anyhow.
Yeah, we already have contracts with the fire departments. The note I just made to myself, did we get any tax exemptions on fuel purchases? I need to make sure that we can resell to the fire departments
Right.
with that exemption. That's the one thing I want to check on.
Okay. And
Yeah, I'd love to see what, like Derek said, what savings for, because I know some departments it's gonna help more than others. So I would like to see that as well.
It should already be taxed.
All right. Mike, do you know of any reason to go into executive session?
None whatsoever, sir.
Thank you. All I need is a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Got a motion, folks. Enjoy your evening.